just put the machine on an angle now. And then go.
This is the bounce out.
Yeah, bounce out.
If there's one way to do it, and there's the easier way and the harder way, it's beautifully the harder way.
This is it. And this is where all of the work we've done, all the technology that we've created comes together.
They take us all the way. They take us all the way.
Great romance, great war story, and something that hasn't been done before.
What are we on, day 247 or something?
I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm relieved, I'm overjoyed, I'm depressed. I've been living with this character, with these good people. I've been working on this piece since 1997.
The amount of time and what I've had a chance to participate in and what I've seen other actors do has just been inspiring.
The Wachowski brothers were literally shooting every day for 270 days, almost a year of shooting. It was an incredible task.
Because it's such a long period of our lives, and you know, we've all been together through a lot of fun and hard work and a lot of tragedy and sadness and a lot of happiness and joy. Every day coming to work is, for me, the highlight. So, I'll miss that.
The first movie's about birth. The second movie deals with life. The third movie's about death.
3 seems to come back down to this head-on collision that's going to happen between Neo and Smith and the defense of Zion, and they are also inextricably linked together.
We actually get to see the real confrontation. If this is it, this is going to be the takedown. One of us is going to win, one of us is going to lose.
And ultimately, everything is lost and everything is gained.
In less than 12 hours, the machines will breach the dock walls. We've seen that once the machines are inside the city, the odds of our survival decrease dramatically.
Has there been word from the Nebuchadnezzar?
None, and at this point, there's no reason to expect that there ever will be.
Perhaps. But we can hope.
Revolutions was like this wonderful poem on love and life and death.
All about trusting and having belief and having faith and fighting for that which you believe in. That in the darkness, if there's light, it will always prevail.
The nature of a reality and a alternate reality.
It's an epic, but it's an epic in postmodern terms, postmodern conditions, and yet it's timeless, because all great epics transcend any historical period. And I think in the end, The Matrix will also transcend its historical period.
It is a strong love story. It is a strong philosophical movie. It is a war movie. It is a giant action movie. It is kung fu. It brings everything together.
His neural patterns don't read like someone who's in a coma. The strange thing is, I see these patterns all the time.
Where?
On someone jacked in.
At the end of Reloaded, Neo finds himself caught in a construct made by the Merovingian.
He ends up disconnecting himself from his mind, and in this, I suppose it's like a purgatory.
My name is Sati.
I'm at the train station. It functions as a realm of the programs, the crossover from being part of the machine world to the Matrix, where they're liberated.
To get from one world to this other world, Neo has to go through the train man.
Who are you?
The train man is kind of like the ferryman crossing the River Styx. But the train man is not necessarily a very cooperative person.
Humans are are supposed to be free in the Matrix, but they're really imprisoned in programs they're now trying to escape because of deletion or other kinds of situations like Merovingian, who are now using the Matrix as a form for a free place to exist. Dealing with kind of the evolution of entities, programs, humans, machines, and nature.
Do you recognize me?
A part of you.
Yeah, that's how it works. Some bits you lose, some bits you keep. I don't yet recognize my face in the mirror, but I still love candy.
Aaliyah dying and September 11th, and then Gloria dying. That was a tough time.
We lost Gloria Foster, man. We lost Aaliyah, we lost Gloria. Her death devastated everyone. Larry and Andy in particular, I know.
Anybody you know, especially someone that sweet and just like everybody's grandma.
Gloria was a woman who was a giant in the American theater. Well-loved and well-respected, an incredible talent. Somebody who never really got her due, if you will. And the role of the Oracle was one in which she was actually able to sort of live out some of that.
She is that character. Her performance, her original performance is fantastic.
Not quite what you were expecting, right?
It was immediately apparent to anybody who read the scripts that her absence potentially was a structurally significant blow to the production.
Initially, we didn't know. And for Larry and Andy, they were like dumbfounded. And then it became a very difficult rewrite. You know, how to explain to have essentially one Oracle in Reloaded and then have a completely different person in Revolutions.
They reached out to Mary Alice, who played with Gloria Foster in New York for 2 years in a show called Having Our Say. And they were brilliant together.
Now, when I said, I just thought Gloria was wonderful as the Oracle. I just sort of let myself be open. What about the
Mary Alice comes in and does an amazing job of presenting a living, breathing Oracle.
The saga of making the movie was as full of drama and thrills and chills and excitement as the movie themselves. Keanu and Carrie and Jada, Lawrence Hugo, I mean, they really worked hard.
Can I take your... Oh, my God.
I had such anxiety when I walked onto the set. It reminded me of when Keanu and I did the government lobby. Just the idea of the squibs and the explosions and the pressure to get it. I was just like, whew.
This way?
Yeah. The boys were very specific. This is a big old heavy ship, so you gotta look like you're really turning this thing and you're trying to turn it fast and whew, we were really sweating.
They're not interested in just spectacle. They put the camera in places that you generally never put it. Longer takes, different angles that you don't usually see, longer fight sequences, and it's much more difficult to do. And what happens then, if you do get it, it's like it's really happening.
Good. Are you okay? Okay, everyone. Oh, I thought he was saying my head.
It's a diving thing.
I have to kick this guy and he goes through the wall. And every time I did the kick, I had my eyes closed until they said he was okay. Because I was so afraid he was just gonna like get a concussion or hurt himself or, oh, that was so crazy. Those guys are crazy. I never knew stuntmen until this film, and stuntmen and stuntwomen are very, very special people. They're like kids.
I'm always surprised by the shots that they can come up with. Each time they surprise us with a new angle, a new type of shot.
It's one of those films that's really in the imagination of the directors, really. It's in their heads. But once you kind of get into their heads, they can make that journey too.
It just evolves, you know. It's just, you have the idea and you proceed with it. It evolves into another idea. You proceed with it. It evolves into another idea. You don't know until the day you show up.
Oftentimes it's Larry with a finder and Andrew at the monitor. And they find the scene. Well, should we put the camera here? Should we put it here? Should we put it there? It's been great to be a part of that creative process with them.
The amount of sets and the amount of setups and the amount of units shooting at one time, it was mind-boggling.
It takes an army of people doing the conceptual drawings, the storyboards, physically building those things, painting them. Larry and Andy and Bill Pope standing on that set and directing and photographing the actors. And then add to it visual effects.
What's a pod-born pencil neck like you doing volunteering for my corps?
I want to do my part, sir. We gotta hold the dock.
How old are you, kid?
18.
Should have said 16. I might have believed that.
Machines don't care how old I am. They'll kill me just the same.
The siege is where all the bruises came from, and it's gonna be well worth every bruise.
Siege is the climactic confrontation between man and machine. In the tradition of Jeff Darrow, it would be very, very, very dense frame.
Jeff Darrow established a lot of the design with these massive drawings where every single bolt was detailed and every bit of rust had a line. The challenge of making that into the Siege was massive.
It's really an epic sequence. I mean, it is just huge. It uses everything that a filmmaker has at his disposal to create something gigantic. Full of live action photography, integrated with CGI photography, integrated with miniature work.
The amount of art and technology that's had to come together in such a short period of time is pretty much second to none.
You have to get everybody together, work it out. First it comes from the brothers, then it goes to Owen, and then it goes to John, and it comes to me, and we just slowly hammer it out. What does it really look like? What does it look like finally on celluloid?
We're standing on the dock set at the moment, and you can see all these fantastic sentinels. Larry and Andy like to have some physical set into which to place a visual effect.
It's something that could not have been done ever until right now.
Getting the scene even initiated, visual effects-wise, was like climbing over a glacial mountain.
300 shots. It's a 17-minute sequence that cost more than most movies that have been made.
100,000 gigabytes of disk storage. Companies on 3 different continents, having 1,000 employees.
So many hundreds of crafts all working together.
My name is Lyndon Barrois, and I am the animation supervisor.
I'm Dan Glass. I'm one of the visual effects supervisors.
My name is Scott Kravitz.
Visual effects supervisor.
Visual effects technology supervisor.
Animation supervisor.
Character setup artist.
Head of R&D.
Color and lighting TD.
My name's Alistair McLeod. I'm
Technical director.
What am I?
I worked on the hair tool.
Randy, like animator.
Animatic.
Animator.
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 Lead animator on the Siege.
The scene has been drawn visualized, discussed, tested for a solid 2 years now.
It was extraordinary just looking at that animation, you know, and that was just a rough idea of what was going to happen.
They prevised this entire sequence. So more often than not, we use the previs as the Bible.
They had this amazing APU and all its accoutrements.
Which is essentially a robot that they sit in the seat of.
Again, it came from a drawing that Jeff did. It was a huge effort to kind of construct that.
One of my great pleasures was to show them one of these drawings. As soon as they started laughing, I knew I did what they wanted.
10 tons of metal, he could make it shoot all over the place.
So the other part of the set that was made was a human carriage. It's got all these fantastically dramatic moves, which are all run off the animation cycle that John Gator's team at Escape have worked out.
As an animator, you actually got to drive those performances beforehand. So those performances are already tailored to an action that you've developed.
It was like being in the ultimate PlayStation game, you know? You were actually in the game, to be in there shooting down these bad guys and being the last man standing.
So it's been all of these people that go together, put all these bits and pieces together. Eventually you get an APU standing there.
We have launched a miniature unit working specifically on things that get destroyed.
Things breaking, things smashing. We still do a good job at that.
When you are a good filmmaker, you know how to use CGI. It is an incredible tool.
Our team is essentially just working on The Siege, which is recreate this entire underworld environment. The dock, the characters, the platforms, the subfloor, throwing in all of our thousands of Sentinel swarms. The biggest CG battle that I've seen in a film.
So it's a real mishmash of real art-directed physical objects, actors, digital creatures, miniatures, and computer graphics.
You don't think you're coming back? I knew it the moment you said you had to leave. I could see it in your face. Just like you knew the moment you looked at me that I was coming with you. Here we go. One of the things that I love so much about Trinity is just her complete and total love that she has for Neo and the belief that she has in Neo. And she's, not going to be told that, she can't do something. She's very proactive. She goes in there and finds a way.
That's all you said to go?
Yeah, give it to me right away. I want it.
3, 2, 1, go. Cut.
Trinity and Neo sort of ascend while Morpheus and Niobe are descending.
Right.
The world seems to be coming to this, catastrophic end. It's beautiful.
Lawrence, it's like bouncing a tennis ball back and forth and back and forth. He and I were out there playing tennis.
Can we make it?
We ain't come this far.
Smiths are meant to be all the same, and yet, do you dissipate the energy of Smith for a viewing audience if there isn't one central Smith? Does the viewer really want there to be one central, extremely bad Smith that they can kind of focus on?
The whole Neo-Smith interchange all the way through is the key to the Matrix to me, and it really comes to a head in 3.
It's a negotiation, right? It's a contest of will.
They're opposites, and therefore they have to be together in life and death.
They have equal power and equal strength, but you know, one wants one thing and one wants the other.
He expresses the desire to be all-powerful. He seems to be taking over the world. Yeah. And he seems to relish that.
Mr. Anderson, welcome back. We missed you.
It ends tonight.
Super Brawl takes place in the street, in the air, and then in a building, and then in a crater.
The rain was unbelievable. But they couldn't get much done. It was the highest example of like, da-da-da, cut, okay, set up. And a setup would take a long time. They'd have to dry the guys. But it was, you know, that was crazy. That's a crazy scene.
The challenge was getting a hell of a lot of water in and getting a hell of a lot of water out without flooding the whole studio.
Matrix code was originally conceived to look like rain. It was supposed to look like water coming down the screen. So when you actually have rain, you of course want to allude to the Matrix code rain. So we wanted fat rain, which we ended up calling chubby rain, large nozzles and huge amounts of water.
The rain was so heavy that it was hard to speak without starting to have bubbles and streams of water running out of your mouth. We did one little piece. We had like 78 takes, and then went back the next day and did another 15 or something like that.
Fight gets taken skyward, and there is feats flying and flying, fighting, and ways of battling in the sky. The whole scene is a serious amount of blending between computer graphics and photography.
They wanted to see flight in a way that we would assume would be the characters that have weight, and they would move, and they would feel like they were flying.
We had to devise some practical methods which were rig-based, and then, of course, applying virtual humans anywhere that we could to do some of the more complex camera coverage. The virtual human process is a combination of the motion capture and universal capture.
The beginning of the story starts with going up in the zero-G plane and studying what it looks like to be doing martial arts in zero gravity.
They use those zero-gravity plane devices to train astronauts. They go up to a certain height and they do a quick drop, which kind of suspends the participants in a weightless situation. Gaeta and the guys wanted to get a sense of what weightlessness was like.
It's a really excellent reference we actually used as a template for how the shots would look. And there's a lot of bits and pieces that are achieved by motion capture.
It's kind of like the strings of a puppet. The cameras can't actually see the actors, but we record those motions, and then we can attach those motions to a different character.
And you kick Hugo!
You just have to find some joy in it.
Universal capture, which is kind of like emotion capture, where they do tremendous, very, very high definition photography of a face, and then the computer actually records how they are, so they can actually take one person's face and put it onto another person's face.
Deliver a hit, you're running in, you're pissed at him because you're going to just take him out. Come on.
It's like your whole performance is being taken apart. And the way in which you do things is being put under the microscope. Every little movement, every little sound, every little part of your body is being scrutinized and filmed and
I don't mind this sort of thing, but flipping around, don't like that.
Cool, aren't they? It just takes place all around you and above you and below you. It is everything every comic book reader or comic book fan has ever dreamed of.
Folks, the gate's good. So that will be a motion picture wrap on Morpheus, Lawrence Fishburne on Matrix Reloaded.
We are forever connected to each other, and we are forever identified by these characters.
It's been a transforming experience. It's been so much learning, and it's been hard, wonderful.
Being on this project has helped me grow in so many different ways.
It's been hard, but that's what makes it really good, you know, rolling up the sleeves and trying to realize this dream. You know, that's kind of been one of my mantras through the days. It's just, you know, may we realize this dream.
It's wonderful to be so committed to something that you believe in.
There just aren't many projects like The Matrix. This is the only movie I would have sacrificed 2 years of my life for. This is the only one.
People took the most extraordinary things out of the first one. This one will be no different.
It's an evergreen. It's going to be around for a long time, a long, 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 long time.
Hopefully they'll have fun, things to think about, things to talk about, and we'll create some moments about being excited, going to the movies.
Everything that has a beginning has an end.
The term bullet time is a dramatic convention that Andy and Larry made up. Bullet time is basically a mind over matrix moment where
we detach the time and space of the subject from the camera.
You always know that you're doing something that is groundbreaking. If someone asks something that you go, maybe.
You know, a lot of people in the visual effects industry, early on when they knew what we were doing for Matrix, thought we were crazy. Yeah, you're smart, but you're not that smart.
It's like a small idea that gets bigger and bigger and bigger and then finally becomes supernatural. It is just staggering.
Where we were in the mid-90s was attempting to create the illusion that a camera could move at subsonic speeds, a virtual-looking camera that had to be done in a very physically laborious way. We shot that test in a junkyard with a handful of still cameras that we bought locally. 120 cameras and 2 motion picture cameras set up.
It was photographic, it was two-dimensional, and really there was only one path that our camera could run because we had to plan it and lay out all these still cameras.
From that point, we have found ourselves making what we call today virtual cinema and virtual cinematography, which is where the camera is detached in its time and space from the subjects.
Still bullet time, and we move in and out of amazing moments, but the methods that we're using are completely different.
Virtual cinematography is a phrase that John coined. It's using real live photography elements, whether it be stills photographs or a piece of motion picture footage or high-def photography, and manipulating it inside a computer to be able to repurpose it and reformat it so you can see it from different angles, different camera speeds. It's kind of a digitization of the real world that then allows you to have a virtual camera that can fly anywhere in that scene.
The possibilities for slowing down the motion, speeding up the motion, and basically like throwing the camera wherever you want.
It allows you to move the camera in ways that a real camera would by no means be able to move.
So it escalates way beyond first experiments in bullet time, because we really could get any angle on this action now. Infinite camera perspectives are available. A little shorter on the winch part, because it's really the greatest part of it, and a little longer on the virtual human process is a combination of the motion capture and universal capture.
You're in the air, and here comes the flame, and in the back, you feel?
The real thing that we were very, very scared with at the beginning was how could you produce a rendition of your principal actors at a realistic enough level that you don't create a loss of belief from the audience. What we decided to do was build something that was based on analyzing a real performance.
Nothing will surpass the qualities that a random performance could give you from a real actor, real person.
We pretty much settled on the faces would be the hardest thing to recreate.
We decided to build this system, which we call Universal Capture System, which consists of 6 high-definition cameras and arranged around that actor's face.
If you filmed a real actor with film cameras or digital cameras, as it turned out to be, from enough angles, and were able to write some very clever sort of machine vision processing algorithms, you'll actually be able to produce a very realistic digitization of one of our actors.
And from that source material, we derive all moving dimensional models with all the texture associated with the face.
This is the sort of new and fun part of the process, a procedure known as motion capture.
The more of the real actor we can use, the better.
The stick figure really represents the bones inside of the character. And so the nice thing is that you can put that inside any character.
The scene that it's most applied to is the Burly Brawl. And the procedure for that was to figure out the master plan for the choreography, captured all these little components, and then composed.
For the Burly Brawl, because there were 350 Agent Smiths in one shot, there's no way you would be able to do it any other way. We pretty much had to do it as digital humans.
So looking at virtual Keanu, it is Keanu performing underneath that CG shell. And all of his training pays off for our material just as it does on film.
Over many years of development and many people working very hard to try and get the essence of Hugo and Keanu into these digital characters.
At this point, nothing is real. This is all just computer graphic.
The backgrounds and the original bullet time stuff were done through a technique called image-based rendering, where we took still photographs of the sets that Owen Patterson built or some of the live-action environments, and we're able to reconstruct dimensionally what them sets were, so that we could then, inside the computer, produce a virtual fly-through.
What this means is we take photographs and we project them onto geometry, which allow us to create 3D environments.
It's possible for somebody to build a set, like Owen Patterson, to design and build a set, but we can go and photograph it and recreate it exactly inside the computer. So we can pretty much match Bill's lighting and Bill's photographic look.
That really is the essence of virtual cinematography.
For Trinity Falls and Reloaded, specific buildings in Sydney have been selected to be the environment. And so those have been all photographed.
All the way down.
It doesn't involve us completely making synthetic creations in the computer. We still need a real set, real lighting, and real photography to get it to work, because it actually gives a very realistic look to the movie.
It's amazing what you got to do just to get the rudimentary components as a starting place, the canvas, to put the other elements on. So today we're going to get our endless megacity sprawl.
Megacity is based on tons and tons and tons and tons of photographs of Sydney, Australia. Sydney, Australia isn't necessarily the look of the Matrix, so we had to repurpose a lot of it and extend buildings, change color palettes, make them look a little bit more interesting. And that was done by our map painting department and our virtual background department.
We created buildings based on the photos, but extended them to 100 stories, sometimes 200 stories tall buildings.
We see Megacity at its grandest in the Superfight. It's an excellent combination of virtual backgrounds, matte painting, and synthetic characters.
The number one obstacle for doing flying successfully was weightlessness and the feeling that you were not encumbered by gravity and the physical constraints that doing rigs on sets brings you. So we had a blue screen shoot that involved special rigs, and then at the same time we begun animation of the other superhero human flying shots.
A lot of things that we're doing is taking a lot of wire stunts and making them look like they're not on wires. Kind of like digital wire removal in CG world. And also stuff that's like impossible to capture, we would just go in and hand animate it.
With hand animation, you're able to get a much more fluid look. Really gets a performance that you can nail down to the millimeter. In the Superfight, 70% of the rain that you see is synthetic computer-generated rain.
Integrating computer graphic rain with real rain and different layers deep of both.
It took us a long time to get the rain system to match the live action, to the point that we could actually insert in the middle synthetic rain. The wet look for the characters was quite a challenge. Our cloth department not only excelled at producing a really kick-ass looking dynamic for wet clothing for Neo and for Smith, but also were able to produce really excellent looking water spray that every time they fight or hit each other, spray goes flying off.
A lot of technology being arrayed to basically understand the water, how it really works in the real world, and then how to stylize it. How about really hard?
Action!
The punch is the definitive blow delivered by Neo. We're looking to really amp up the drama of a fist, and it will be smashing through rain that's nearly suspended, and the rain will smash off in a zero GE way. So we're basically going to cover it virtually with computer graphic fist seen with somewhat of vertigo camera lensing to create a real sense of enormous mass.
This sequence is one of the biggest visual effects sequences in the movie. Blue screens, CG rain, actual CG digital Neo and Smith characters. This has everything thrown in.
It's just a logical extension of the whole notion of CGI.
Larry and Eddie will take risks. They kind of pushed us into reaching them extra limits. It's not a question that you may want to do it or you can't do it, you have to do it.
Filmmaking in general has now this new tool,
which I believe allows directors and writers and cinematographers to transcend all of the physical boundaries that are placed upon us by shooting here in the everyday world. It liberates the filmmaker in ways that they never have been before. And that is a pretty long stretch in that time frame.
Three, two, one, action! Cutting there.
terms of shooting the visual effects shots within the Matrix world. They're all the kung fu, wire work, a lot of compositing, and then the synthetic human stuff. And visual effects work in the real world is essentially 800 full CG shots with live action integration as well.
CGI is an incredible tool because you can do unbelievable things with it that you've never seen before and will never see again.
In this particular production, you have tons of sets, you have tons of digital environments and extensions and objects that are being mixed together. So the amount of integration with CG in these movies is probably more elaborate than anything that's been done.
The siege is just really an epic sequence. I mean, it is just huge. Oh my God. It's unusual because it uses everything that a filmmaker has at his disposal to create something gigantic.
The impression was that the detail level would be extraordinary in terms of how many things actually happening during this battle.
That was always, I think, very daunting to everybody. There are so many sort of elements involved in so many shots. I mean, you have a very complex interaction, intermingling of visual effects and practical elements.
Within the Matrix, you have a lot of photographable things. It's like they take place in cities, you know, office buildings, places that you're familiar with every day. But here you've got small little pieces that usually open up into large areas.
It's a huge set. It fills basically all of stage one, and it's got a green screen all the way around it. Even though they're big sets, they're really only kind of small proportions of ultimately what you see in the whole dock.
The APUs are a totally new thing for these films.
I ended up drawing it, making it this 16 feet tall, because I kept thinking they're going to have this thing carrying guns around. It's basically like a tank. It should look pretty formidable. It should look kind of bulky and clunky, because it shouldn't look too much like a robot in that it, you know, because they're fighting robots and they're against the robots. It should look more like a bulldozer kind of a thing.
I believe it works with the theme of the film, which is this sort of like this grungy, mechanical city that they've put together that's, you know, who knows how many hundreds of years old, and it's all this ancient technology that they're using, hydraulics and electric motors, and all this other stuff. You got this big, giant metal gorilla that you're animating.
Their personality is literally the personality of the drivers. It's very difficult to recreate the nuances of human expression and human movement totally in a CG world. And because these actors were important, these performances were very important to the directors, I believe that's what drove them to want real humans inside these things.
What, in a sense, we've assembled is a motion base that is aligned to a motion-control camera, and both are being driven by files that have been based upon animations that we've been working on for months.
As an animator, you actually got to drive those performances beforehand. So hopefully that when you do get your plates in the post-production process, those performances are already tailored to an action that you've developed.
First thing was coming up with a walk that the brothers and John Gator liked that showed basically the size of the APU, how heavy it was and how it moved and that kind of thing. Then we show that to the actors, show them where the steps are being taken, you know, how this thing's moving, so that it looks like the actors are actually riding in our little animated thing.
You know, the actor in that chair is live, and everything else around it is all CG. The different characteristics of the way these guys are working the rig. You know, this guy is just real forceful with it, and his characteristic going, you know, ahead with a huge body lean, big steps. And this guy is more, you know, leaning back and, you know, real calculated with his aiming. So just that shot alone, you can see the differences that we're building into, you know, that we're animating into the machines.
The dock is breached!
The diggers basically are nothing more than, you know, as the name implies, the devices that just bore holes from the surface of the Earth through every tunnel between the surface and Zion, eventually poking holes in the dock.
And they just described they wanted this scary thing. And they described digging machines, and I called up mining companies to get information on mining equipment.
I did do some sculpting on the digger, and our inspiration was supposed to look half mechanical and a little crustacean. I do think it's a really cool look.
I tried to make them look like teeth. I had some of them worn off, and they look like bicuspids and molars and shit like that. When I lived out in the country, I'd see this farm equipment that used to plow the ground up, and you'd see that stuff, the metal wears down and breaks off so easy. So I tried to age the metal and make it look like, it was breaking off as it was going through the earth.
On this set here, there's like lots of, dead sentinels around, but probably if you're on this set and while we were filming, there is like, hundreds upon hundreds of sentinels flying around.
Brothers and John Gata were both wanting very much to see something new. They wanted to add a little bit more to the Sentinels as far as character elements. Consequently, we have to find places where we can bring out those character elements, but not change them to the degree where they don't feel they work with the Sentinels from the first film.
It's always nice when you can make a Sentinel look like he's thinking. That's the real trick. Any kind of animation is making an inanimate object look like it's having a thought and an emotion.
Yeah. See, again, you feel that, there was something going on in that head. When I get comments like, the Sentinels really have, attitude and personality here, and there's a purpose here, I know that, well, we achieved something.
There's a lot of flying Sentinel shots.
Oh, well, just the hand of God is a mass of Sentinels that...
Imagine a school of sardines.
Yeah, exactly, like a school Killer of fish
sardines.
or something that just kind of form this massive tentacle hand thing that just attacks everything.
The Sentinels, I think, are great. I love the way they're designed. I mean, the Sentinels can do anything, pretty much.
I know what I have to do. What? I have to take one of the ships. What? To go where? To the Machine City.
Machine City is the last environment that we haven't seen, and even though we saw a taste of it in the first movie, it didn't all come together until Revolutions.
You could see their vision, even in the script, it was something completely different. They definitely wanted it to be scary and atmospheric and epic.
To me, it's a lot more abstract. A world that's been built by machines, and they don't think like we do. So what we might find aesthetically beautiful, they wouldn't. For them, there is no up, there is no down, there's no inside, no outside, because they don't, gravity doesn't mean anything to them. They don't have a sense of, equilibrium like we do, so it doesn't matter that they're, they could be coming out of the ceiling, or they could be, living upside down. It doesn't exist for them.
Larry and Andy had Jeff do a concept. What he came up with, I think from their brief initially, was the inside of a spinal cord. I think the drawing he did, which was very kind of mechanical looking tubes, which were interconnected with what we call centicles now. You kind of got this feeling that all a series of conduits that run down, but it's like being inside the core of a spinal cord. We need to define a physical way of building it, so I thought in the end it was best to sort of finish the cylinders with these claw pieces, and then when you cut back to the wide shot, which will be really made up as a visual effects shot, you will end up with these very large crustacean type pieces. You get a sense of drama of this kind of scale.
The Machine City actually, it's always been kind of referred to as like a coral reef or some kind of a foreign kind of a landscape that's just teeming with life.
It did sort of look like it was grown, and there was a sort of a hive, sort of a thing to it.
There were no miniatures. That was one of the interesting things about the job for us, is that normally, you know, with visual effects, you get like background plates, photographic plates you incorporate elements into. And I think that we had something less than a third of the shots that we did had either a foreground plate of the actors in a cockpit or a background plate in some cases with Neo walking down the tunnel into the Machine City. So, man, the amount of digital stuff we had to create was just outrageous.
What the boys always felt is that, you know, the most perfect forms in our world are insects. They're designed to move and be protected, and they're aerodynamically correct, that they can defend themselves. So most of the machine creatures are essentially insect-based.
But some of the things that were interesting is when we started using like particle systems to grow the city. You know, we would run these simulations, and the guys did a great job. Dan Rolonek did all these particle simulations that would sort of create city pieces that would grow buildings. Like we broke the buildings down into different types of buildings and different pieces of buildings. So you might have a base of a building and a tip of a building, and you could recombine those in different orders, and you could give different kind of growth patterns. Now!
The Logos crashes, he sort of crawls out of the Logos, and there's like a big kind of like funnel set, if you like, which sort of takes him to the Deus Ex Machina.
There's several, different areas that we knew were going to be kind of exciting challenges, and the Deus was one of them.
What are you going to draw? What is it going to be? And I didn't want to think about it at all, because I thought this is going to be the hardest thing to draw in this movie, because it's the God machine. It had to be something that a human would recognize as, would have to be humanistic, so that, you know, Neo could relate to it, and the audience as well. And, you know, everybody thinks of God with the flowing white beard and all this, and I think that's what everybody thought it was going to do, something like that. And I thought I'd go in the opposite direction, and it's the face of a baby, which I thought was pretty horrific, because it's got this horrible urchin-y thing, and all of a sudden all these little robots come out, and they form like the most innocent thing that's possible.
So we started out with the mechanics of it. The guy's like a big porcupine, or again, kind of an aquatic reference, like a big sea urchin, a spiny sea urchin. So we built the initial model with all these spikes everywhere and portals and such. At the same time, we had to work out kind of a performance basis for the guy, right? He was going to form a face. So first off, we went and shot a photographic reference of the director's nephew, Henry. We tried to get key expressions that the Deus would be going through. The parents were there, and they put the toy in front of him and then pull it away to try and get him to do some frowns. We finally got him to cry, which was some of the most appropriate reference that we got. And then the next step was to work with Kevin, one of the actors who was in Light of the Osiris, and we did motion capture sessions and having him go through the lines and generic poses, looking for, again, performance cues. And for the swarms, we took a lot of reference from schools of fish, basically sardines and whatnot, and also tried to mix in some kind of a weird stuff like frequency-dependent, movement that you might see like in iron filings, magnetic fields, or also a field that's kind of loosely called cymatics, which is this idea of sort of visualizing different frequencies through like a lycopodium powder. And there's some pretty outrageous movement and stuff that you see in there. So we started to try to line up what our design elements are that we could use.
It is done. And then I did the, I guess it's a garbage scow, that at the end that transports Neo. It's a dinosaur. I imagine you get a dinosaur into the movie. It's like a sort of a triceratops kind of a thing. I just, I got a piece of paper and a pencil, and I can come up with all this stuff, but they got to make it work, and they do.
The only way we got through it was by the talent and perseverance of the whole crew that was working on the show.
It's very easy to get sort of jaded just looking at a little gray box all day long. Seeing rendered stuff really kind of kicks you back into reality, and you're working on something that's going to be really cool when all the elements are stuck together.
Everybody put their back into it and just really kind of pulled miracles out of their pockets on a regular basis.
It's pretty mind-blowing just to see the amount of work that we were able to pull off of this thing.
Right now, I'm making concrete pipes for blowing up. Pretty much that's what we make most of our stuff for, is blowing stuff up.
Every time you see a spaceship crash into the ground, be it in, Planet of the Apes or Independence Day, it's a miniature.
The scale of this is massive. And to get that scale and debris and fire and everything, nothing can compete with a miniature.
Things that would be destroyed or be huge event locations where things would just shatter.
CG is not really too great on doing stuff like explosions, interaction of stuff actually hitting, matching, and debris coming off. So that's the stuff that really sort of happens here.
There's just a lot of serendipity or randomness that happens.
We can pick up a lot of that detail that we wouldn't otherwise be able to get. And so, trying to get that extra little bit of realism into our CG city.
Same size person's probably just about this tall.
When they say you're going to work on the model unit, you imagine these tiny little models, little figures, and then you realize when you arrive that, either something that's even 10th scale or 3rd scale or 5th scale is still huge.
Technically, it is a miniature, even though that ship is close to a ton.
They're the biggest miniatures you've ever seen. They don't look like miniatures at all. They look like live-action sets.
The studio started calling them bigatures because, like the dock doors, even though it's 10th scale, is really 30 feet high and 40 feet wide.
Why aren't we building this even, half this scale? It's because we have explosions and fire, and you can't change the size of fire.
Ready, and action!
On this film, we pretty much started out with the digger, which is our key actors, our players in this. We built part of a 5th scale digger and a 10th scale digger.
They built a shape of the finished digger, essentially, but with absolutely no features on it whatsoever, but very heavy. It weighed a couple of 100 pounds, I think, and so they could drop it in a controlled manner into the specially constructed 1 to 10 scale pipes.
This is going to be where the digger plunges into the lower dock set. These pipes are pyrosil and aluminum, and they're going to crush down to simulate real pipes. Should be good.
Right, but you want the pyro coming from inside the pipes, though.
Yeah, inside the
So
catwalk.
It was difficult to build these complex environments and make all of the reactions happen properly. That the explosions, the pipes that would flip up into frame, the debris that would fall, tried to capture as much of that as possible.
Action!
This project I have right now, we're taking miniature sentinels, I call them baby sentinels, and we're destroying them. They're the dead sentinels that'll be placed on one of the crash sets.
And those sentinels have been used for a dropping sequence. It looks like a great big pile of seaweed. It's a fantastic effect.
They are evil little creatures, but the bad guys are always so much neater, so I like working with the bad guys.
A lot of the miniatures, again, have to do with interaction. In the case of the dock, you have a control tower up there that topples down during the battle, and that will be built in miniature just for that purpose.
The hamburger is an extension of what we built in Australia.
They built like the top 20 feet of this in live action, and we've built everything above that. And this tower will be in a giant room that'll be generated in computer graphics.
Primarily, it's for where they need to go really close so that you don't have to go and render the whole thing out for that.
There's a lot of fine detail surface area on this one.
They'll build all the core structures out of wood and steel. It's going to be steel because they're going to be crashing this crane over the side of this tower.
This is the crane. This goes up on top, and this thing could spin all the way around.
Even at 10th scale, it's an extremely large model to do the motion control photography on it. We had to build a motion control crane. That's one of the largest motion control cranes in the world.
We finished weighing and it weighs 5,100 pounds, the whole model. And the crane top that's gonna fall is 800 pounds, which is scary and exciting all at the same time.
That tower has been absolutely beautifully designed, and now we're gonna see it destroyed.
The ship will pass right through all of this acrylic, which will represent the deck, and it will just bust into 1,000,000 pieces, hopefully.
Oh, yeah.
Or 1,000 pieces.
Unless we make it too strong, and then the ship's gonna stop. So this is what we came up with for the finale of the Mjolnir into Zion to save the day.
The Mjolnir, I put these scales on it, or these big metal plates. That gives extra detail because they're these plates that you can like break chunks off, like it broke, skidded against something.
The actual doors.
Yes.
Yeah, I think each one is like 3,500 pounds.
The gate, we must have the biggest gate. We need this gigantic mechanical, machinery-driven gate.
This door behind me was the biggest roll aid shot for me. It had the most possibilities for absolute failure.
And then when that thing is traveling down the track, we did a test yesterday, it's like a car just flying down the road. It's pretty freaky.
Yeah.
This is probably one of our largest events.
The ship weighed about a ton. It had to go pretty fast. It had to make a turn. And then while it was making the turn and squeaking through the door and blowing up, it was dropping and rolling, and the nose was sliding over. So this was a pretty big deal.
We have 5 cameras, and it takes us days to set up these shots. We're all a little nervous if we're not sure whether it's gonna be right or not. We're crossing our fingers.
Ship is saved, ship is saved.
Call that a direct hit.
Jesus Christ. Looks like the Hurricane Mjolnir came through here.
There are so many things that can be achieved by having the background into which they can put a digger or whatever it might be. They start off with a basis and then they can add to it.
Computer graphics and the miniatures are actually integrated into every shot. So you'll have CG models, you'll have hand-built models, you'll have computer graphic pyro layered on top of real pyro, and ideally the blend will be seamless.
Like taking the old-fashioned way of movies and blending it with the most modern way of doing movies and trying to get the best elements out of each.
When set and action.
The Super Bowl essentially is between one smith and Neil, with all the other smiths standing on and watching, like a kind of football crowd.
In this day and age to do a hybrid film of live action and visual effects, you gotta be able to do some shots in camera.
Because of the nature of some of the shots that had to be done in the scene, where really you would be concentrating on Keanu and Hugo fighting and it's raining. In the background, you had to have Smiths, many Smiths. But you wouldn't want to have to put them in every shot as a visual effect. So I said one day, well, why don't we make a whole of, rubber Smiths? And they looked at me like I was completely mad.
We went through a variety of ideas and eventually arrived at some pretty photorealistic dummies.
Hugh and Peter want to put so much effort into getting the right molds and doing the right work on the faces, they were really like Hugo.
They were pretty successful and turned out so much better than it seemed like we were going to be able to do at the beginning.
We've got to do a cast of this one, and we're going to do this one again. Now, and this one a little bit more meter.
There are 3 different models. There's grumpy, there's happy, and there's neutral. And they made more neutrals than they made grumpies and happies. Just neutral.
Taking 3 head impressions of Hugo weaving, and what we'll be doing is a combination of Agent Smith masks as well as dummies, 100 dummies and 50 masks to be worn by actors.
They did a number of different tryouts, a number of different materials to make the mask and to try and get the right tone.
That was the original one we made. That's a hard resin. So is this one. The reaction was it looked too hard. So we've since then made some out of silicon rubber. The purpose of doing a silicon skin is that when the lights are on this, the silicon skin will glow like human flesh. And the rain also sits differently in it. It just runs off, whereas on the fiberglass head, the rain just tends to sit there.
They also got my body as well on hands and put hands in gel. They wrapped my body up in plaster bandages and I stood there for like hours and, you know, so this is me.
So after it's been painted, we'll send that off to the hair and makeup. We'll put a wig on it.
It's been an interesting project because this scene that we're doing, I don't think has ever been done before. I don't think anything like it has been done before. We're cutting 182 wigs. We've had all the wigs handmade. They're all hand-tied. They're going to be standing in the pouring rain, which makes throws another element into what we have to think about or how we're thinking about doing these wigs. They have to endure heavy rain and they can't get messed up. That's the trick. We actually put silicone on the hair, so we kept up that little front, which gives him that Smith look.
They had to make a wig for me because all my doubles were standing there beautifully with their hair staying up in the rain, but my hair in the rain, even with the massive amount of hairspray, started to just fall down on my face. That's how crazy it got.
Our department have worked out an elaborate system of keeping everyone warm, keeping everyone dry.
Yeah, it's a major collaboration between the art department, props department, and costume, getting everybody looking the same.
60 masks, 60 corresponding wigs.
You know, you have to multiply everything by 100. You know, there's 100 left hands, right hands, feet, shoes, ties, tie pins, cufflinks.
It's a big challenge because of the intensity of the rain all the time. It's hard to be in the rain every day for 15 hours.
I seem to recall having 80 humans and 150 fiberglass dummies, which the art department made up, and they were fantastic because they were all dimensionally perfect. It was easy to deal with them. It was the 80 humans. They're all 6'2", but they're so different, and some had long torsos, some were all legs, some had extremely sloping shoulders. Larry and Andy wanted to do a tracking shot, and everybody's shoulder points had to meet.
And at the moment we have a whole team of dummies. This we'll have a row of 51, and then another row of 51, and then a row of 50 or 51 extras, who will also be wearing Hugo Weaving or Agent Smith look-like masks. And then we'll be training them on how to use the mechanism and left-right turns and nods and what have you.
They all have handles in the back, which are operated by one extra. Operates 2 Hugos, turning the heads or tilting the heads and turning.
This is the repair station. With the turning of the heads, there's a lot of wear and tear on the necks, and the paint tends to rub and lift a bit, so we have to repaint and seal the necks. The silicone paint that we use takes a day to fully dry before we put them back into the neck mechanisms.
It's awesome. I hope we even wear this skin-tight wetsuit. You can't even move it, cuts the circulation off your arms because of the water. It's piling down, the biggest storm you've ever seen in your life, and we're in this mask that we can't get out of all day. But it's all in good fun.
They're quite disconcerting, right? Even to Hugo.
The communists? No!
Yeah, even Mr. Weaving himself got a bit spooked when he saw himself replicated many times.
Same. Everyone is the same.
Hugo's been very good. He's been very happy to have his head moulded, and I think he loves looking at all these guys.
You love me?
Seeing Keanu Reeves and Lawrence Fishburne or Hugo Weaving doing the stunt, it just opens up a whole new world. When you see the guys falling down, those are the real actors falling down.
So maybe if it's just like a regular, so if that last left, so yeah, you know, so if I just hold that one there, and if you went to throw the other one,
you know, it was really up to us some days to ask everyone around us, Wu Ping's team and the American and Australian stunt teams, what we needed to do. You know, I had a real input into sometimes.
Just classic pop. Kaboom.
And then that's like not working out for a while.
The first time the fights were choreographed, and we learnt them like dancers, like ballets, and they didn't change. They hardly changed at all when we shot them. This time round, there were quite major changes made on the day while we were fighting, and we had to swing with that and accept that, well, now you weren't doing that, you were actually doing that, or there was a kick coming in or something, or you just cut out an element because that part of the fight was too long.
Everyone, I think, because they had their own experience before, knew how they personally wanted to involve themselves in their training.
It was pretty daunting, but I was actually just determined to train hard and train well and to get fit and not get injured.
You've got a 20-pound sandbag on your back and someone's pushing you, looking to warm you up after 2 hours so that they can crack, basically trying to open up your ligaments here so you're gonna split and then, you know, go, you ready? And then when you least expect, you know. And after they do that, you go, thank you. Thank you for making me cry, because now I can kick higher.
I always say, Tiger, you kill me. Never somebody treat me like this, push me so hard, make me cry every day. If you want to kick that high, you want to look good on movie, I say you have to.
It's good fun, but it's taxing. And I'm an old man. I'm 37 years old, you know.
Very few times you get pushed to your actual ability. I think Larry and Andy have done a pretty exceptional job of pushing the martial arts stunt team pretty much to their ability. They don't stop till they get exactly what they want.
Their whole thing is to push you that little bit farther, and as frustrating as it gets, it really brings the best out in everybody.
For me, it's such a great opportunity to be able to be asked to do that. If it's easier for me to start in one spot and do a move, they'll go, oh, we'd like you to start in the action just behind where you have to do a 360 turn around and do it.
Oh God, we did one little piece, we had like 78 takes, I think. And then went back the next day and did another 15 on just one very percussive piece of fight. And then when we got into the crater, we were fighting in the mud as well. So it was mud and rain, but by that stage, the fight had become more like a flailing around, you know.
No matter how good you think it is, you got to go that extra notch. And we're talking perfection, which is good. It pushes all of us, but the Wachowski factor is definitely something to contend with.
3, 2, 1, go!
Chad Stahelski has been such a great boon, I think, to this project. He developed a thing called the Twisty Belt. allowed me to do backflips into cartwheels. We could do multi-directional rotations as opposed to being limited by a regular Hong Kong harness. You know, in this you could twist and rotate.
It's like it's a metal corset. Yeah, it feels quite comfortable, but I don't think you'd want to wear it for very long.
Wire work, when you first see it, it seems easy, but it takes a lot of practice to get used to. It's not the most comfortable thing in the world, and it takes time. Because whether or not the wire lifts you up or puts you down, you still need to be flexible. You still need to be able to kick. You still need to be able to punch, and you still need the strength to pull your body up in the positions that we need. Shot for shot, that's Keanu doing it. That's him getting his leg way up here, kicking the guys in the head. That's him flying up in the air, coming down with the triple kicks and stuff. That's them.
Trying to find the sky like no one's ever fought in the sky before.
Action! Hard, lead, kick!
We've seen some flight occur, but they wanted to see it in a way that we would assume would be the characters would have weight and they would move and they would feel like they were flying.
The tuning forks were very interesting because of what Chad wanted to achieve you could not do on wires.
So we looked at all these Cirque du Soleil and special acrobatic type tapes, and there's equipment that they were using. Conceptually, we saw a connection, or at least the martial arts guys and Chad and RA, you know, sort of borrowed from some, you know, basically circus methods.
We took a gymnastic, a trampoline twisting belt, or aerial spotting belt, and modified it to take the weight and stress load that the belts experience in these rigs, and then made it about twice as smooth and about 10 times as strong. And then used special adapters to plug into our single arm pitchforks. Chop! Bam! Good. The faster you get around, the better.
14 guys just to operate the tuning forks, and so you had to coordinate and choreograph, and everyone had to be in tune and in sync with each other because of the actors and the stunt guys actually coming in, fighting, spinning, rotating, and the mass of those two units was quite extreme. They had to be very diligent and very careful because the impact of those two mechanisms was a very dangerous thing.
The tuning forks are not comfortable at best. They're ugly. They hurt, especially the twisty belts, and they just tear on your hips. Really, it's a lot of pain.
We're just always in the harnesses, and after like 18 hours, it kind of hurts most of the time.
The guys get in them, and they would go into what we call the cave. They would just get so far into pain, and the pain would go away, and they would just. You didn't really want to talk to them. They would just look at you and they would acknowledge you, and they knew what you asked them to do, but there wasn't any friendly socializing going on there. We tried to put the actors in for as minimal amount of time as possible because it was not comfortable. We made a pack. When you got in them, you shot till you were done.
So whenever you're flipping or twisting around the hit, look for him.
Okay.
And that keeps your eyes focused on something. That may hold off the nausea.
The nausea.
But what is the difference between this and the yak rig?
Well, on the yak rig, you yak.
Again, another one of those torture deals, but this was a pole that the two gentlemen face each other and they could turn this way. The pole would allow them to turn this way, and then they could turn the whole base this way. So you had 3 axes going. Real unfriendly rig, hurt again in the hips, made you sick to your stomach.
So it's like a really good carnival ride, and because there's 2 of us in it, it's a nice challenge to see who's going to quit first.
It became a game with them who was going to wimp out first on them, but they didn't like it. You know, it was not good. They were good for about 10 or 15 rotations at a time. Then it was a lot of eyes rolling back in their heads and, you know, trying to see who was going to keep their lunch down.
It's called the yak rig for one reason.
When it goes good, it feels good. When it doesn't go good, it doesn't feel good.
Well now, ain't this a surprise?
Just how long do you think this peace is going to last?
As long as it can. What about the others?
What others?
The ones that want out.
Obviously, they will be freed.
I have your word.
What do you think I am? Human?
The Matrix Online is a continuation of the Matrix stories. When the third movie comes to an end, the Matrix Online literally picks it up from that moment on and goes forward with it.
Through the course of the game, you will have story unfold before you. It's not just a depiction of the Matrix as it was in the films, it's the continuing story of what happens in the Matrix.
So that players can see it's fully open-ended. They don't know where the story goes at all.
We now, as players, can participate in the overall story and help to propel it forward.
Action!
The plan for The Matrix was always to tell a story in multiple mediums. That was the Wachowski brothers, their first thought when we decided to continue the story after the first Matrix.
Larry and Andy are overseeing and contributing to that continuing storyline.
They wanted to be able to take their movies and instead of having a conclusion that was sealed forever, to have a world that the fans could all come to, that they could actually become a part of the Matrix story that they had already enjoyed.
They already had a vision for their, universe to be depicted inside the computer space, and they had very specific concerns that it needed to live up to a particular standard that they had set.
I'm mainly known for my comic book work, especially my character Concrete. After I'd done 3 comic strips for the Matrix website, they gave me a call. It was actually a little mysterious at first. I didn't even know what the project was, except it involved writing. But it turned out, no, it was this fairly new genre of massive multiplayer online games.
A massively multiplayer game is a simulation where thousands of people participate in a shared experience and they all connect to the same server.
Once they create the world and the people, then the players themselves have to really create the story and follow through on the idea. But the boys helped create the world and placed it in that world, and now the players can take it from there.
It's more like a stage that's being built through which, many stories can be told. By giving Paul and the Wachowski brothers maximum flexibility, we're trying to create a situation where players can experience that story in a way that's different from, a typical movie or book or even a single-player game experience.
So when you start the game, you're still one of the people in the farms who's just come to the realization that the entire Matrix is in fact a simulation.
You're going to be presented with the option of taking the blue pill or the red pill, which of course you've taken the red.
The humans are still just as passionate and they hate the machine civilization just as much, but also know that there's only a truce that's keeping them alive.
This will feel a little weird.
You then start to define your residual self-image. You're selecting your clothes, your hair, what you look like. Are you male? Are you female? What your skills are. You can be a spy. You can be a hacker. Or you can be the equivalent of a fighter, a soldier.
And then you become a new operative inside the Matrix. And immediately these forces, the machines, the humans, the various exiles will begin approaching you and trying to hire you to win over your allegiance to their cause.
It's a very complicated clash. It's not just humans versus machines, and as a player you'll have to make your choices of whom you ally yourself with. We'll see characters from the film. They'll be in the game with you.
They're still running their agendas. They're still trying to accomplish their goals as depicted in the films. They may even try to recruit you to work for them. You may be recruited by somebody else who wants you to specifically stop what they are doing.
You'll have to really work to meet them in person. And if you are a good enough player, you'll be able to talk with them.
You'll have to prove yourself worthy. To meet one of these characters from the film will be a monumental task, something that people will be able to brag about.
We have constructed Mega City.
The environment is a vast city where you can wander the streets, you can open doors, you can go through every floor of every building. And there's a lot to find there, and a lot of people who may want to kill you.
The megacity's infinite. It spreads out in all directions. We've tried to capture segments of the megacity. There is the slums environment in the international district, and then downtown and industrial districts.
In terms of just raw square footage of game space to explore, there currently is no equal, and I don't think there will be one for a while. A city is a very organic and dynamic place, and if you're going to capture Megacity as depicted in The Matrix, you're going to need to provide a rich level of detail, and ranging from characters and items and things down to cockroaches and pigeons and trash on the ground.
We have custom-built tools that we have constructed in order to vary a particular landscape so that it doesn't look the same anymore.
You suddenly will have this sense that you're really in a living and expanding environment.
In a city environment, it's only natural that people start to congregate. If people are moving to different areas inside the game in mass droves, we really had to make sure that our architecture was such that it could handle 100 people rushing to one building for whatever reasons.
Our challenge was to go and design a system that would allow tens of thousands of users to play simultaneously in a game world, so that we would have the option of running up very much larger numbers of people than typically exist on a single MMO server system.
We wanted to not only have an enormous world that you could move seamlessly from one area of the city to another, but to move seamlessly from indoor to outdoor, to be able to run up a flight of stairs, take an elevator, come out onto a rooftop, and see the area that you just left seamlessly without load zones.
This is a brand new server in order to be able to deal with latency issues. At the same time, the user doesn't get a feeling of lag when they're under high lag conditions.
That was a big design goal, to make sure that our hardware could handle those types of things.
We have a team whose sole job after the Matrix ships is to continuously add more content to the game. It's just never going to stop.
There are events that will happen each month, and we'll be telling the story both in short movies, in gameplay where the characters are wandering around the world on specific missions that they're sent on that can send them to certain parts of our story.
And there is a story that evolves, but it's created by the people that play the game. So it's much more of a kind of a free-flowing interaction.
I think probably the most obvious thing that you'll see that's better is the combat itself.
As we know from the Matrix, there is a heavy emphasis on the martial arts in terms of combat inside the Matrix.
You can do kung fu, karate moves, you can do wire fu, you can jump from building to building.
We've got combat where you can have one-on-one, one-on-three, four-on-one.
We really do capture that intense, visceral feel of you punch someone in the throat and you're punching them in the throat.
And as you become more and more powerful, you will learn more and more special moves, literally dropping into bullet time and and people around you seeing you do that slow motion move.
And we just wanted to take those superpowers that you see in the movies and make it possible for you to actually do them in an online game.
The Matrix Online represents a first step into tactile combat inside of a massively multiplayer game.
You can do things that no one's ever seen before in an online game, so it sets it apart. It gives us a chance to completely break the genre and turn something new out.
I think everybody's conscious of the fact that in making a massive multiplayer game of The Matrix, we're creating the monster that our heroes tried to slay in the movies.
Yes, you're sitting home at your computer, but you're still interacting in a space that is someplace else, and you're interacting with other people, and I think it kind of really works very well with the idea of the movie.
Some people are just going to want to dress up, go to clubs, hang out, and talk inside the Matrix. Others will literally want to invest time in mapping out one of the largest game spaces ever created in an online environment.
When you talk about movies and groundbreaking, it's hard to say that without thinking about The Matrix. And when you talk about massively multiplayer online games, it should be hard to say that without thinking about The Matrix Online.